only pray to death by saying, see the blade that I wield, that's Valerian steel. See the horse that I rode, see the banner I hold. Oh, win or die, that's the price of the game. And we only pray to death by saying, see the throne that I sit, see my family tree. Because they say the winter's coming, this is how it has to be. 5 children, scions of the frosty bite. Dire wolves that hunt in the thick of the night. House of Stark, Winterfell, now the winter's come. King of the North, bow down, now war's on. They ride southwards, father's hand of the king. And bards sing great songs about his honor.
That's right. Your eyes don't deceive you. Hard NOC Life is back. I feel like I keep saying that. I feel like I open every show with, sorry we were gone forever, but now we're back. But I mean it this time. We're back. We have at least a couple shows lined up for these next few weeks, so we might take another 2-month hiatus after that too. Who knows? It depends. But I had to convene an episode tonight because, one, you may have noticed on the Nerds of Color over the last several weeks, we've kind of become a de facto Game of Thrones fan site. Some commenters on the blog have been like, what is with all these Game of Thrones posts? So to you, one guy out there, I'm sorry about that. But Game of Thrones is an awesome show. We all love it. So that's why we're writing about it. And the season is finally wrapping up this weekend. It's been a crazy season. And we've been recapping the entire season. I'm lucky to have 2 of our 3 recappers joining us tonight and a special guest that I will announce in just a minute, and I'm psyched to have her on as well. But before we get started, let me bring on the best panel in all the 7 realms. And we'll start off out in San Francisco. You might know her on Twitter at sfdirewolf. Her name is Alice Wong. She's first of her name. And she's probably one of the biggest Game of Thrones fans on the website. You've probably read a couple of her recaps along the way. So this is your first time on Hard NOC Life, so welcome, Alice.
Valar Morghulis.
Yeah, I don't speak Valerian, sorry.
But you gotta learn it. It's a
I guess so.
language.
So I'm going to ask everyone this as they come on tonight. So of all the 7 kingdoms and Essos, if you had to choose one place to live and be a part of that particular kingdom, which one of the realms would you like to reside in?
Well, I am a direwolf lover, and I should say Winterfell. But I think my real answer would be Dorne, because I like my men and my women as hot as my climate. I'm going to be a Dornish woman. They have the best wine.
Yeah, that's right.
Great fruits, and they're really passionate people.
Yes, they are. Well, and we'll talk about our dear Prince Oberyn tonight, probably. So, so that's a great answer. Thank you for joining us, Alice. Hopefully, this won't be the last time you're on Hard NOC.
Thanks for having me.
Next up is a familiar face here on Hard NOC Life and at the Nerds of Color. You read her recaps of Korra, and then she's graduated on to recapping Game of Thrones as part of our trio of awesome ladies. She's also, last time she was on, she was based out of the LBC, but now she's in the Bay, right?
Right, in Oaktown.
Welcome back to the show, Julie Kang. Same question that I asked Alice. If you had to live in one of the locations we see on the show, which location would that be?
You know, I was gonna say Dorne, but then I think now that I think about it, I would probably be in King's Landing just so because I'm nosy. I'm a nosy little girl, and I just want to be where all the action is and all the intrigue. I probably last about 2 weeks before I get killed, but it would be an exciting 2 weeks.
So, like, what part of like Flea Bottom you're saying, or
oh,
would you
of course, yeah. I'm not gonna put on any airs.
Well, welcome back. How are you settling in the Bay Area? Have you?
Yes, I had knee surgery a couple days ago, so.
Are you on pain meds right now?
I am totally on pain meds.
Awesome.
So if I just like get up and be like, oh, the pie.
Well, thank you for coming back and joining us and talking Game of Thrones tonight.
Good to be here.
Last and certainly not least, we have a very special guest joining our panel tonight. She needs no introduction because she's way more popular than we are on Twitter and the internet. She is better known as @Black Girl Nerd. She is the owner and co-founder of that awesome website and one of the most influential people on the internet welcome my homegirl from the 757, Jamie Broadnax. What's up, Jamie?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thank you for that very flattering introduction, by the way.
No, I'm serious. And I'm actually glad you're on tonight because we've over the last several weeks we've kind of tag teamed on live tweeting Game of Thrones. I know that whenever Sunday night rolls around, people who complain about spoilers should just stay off Twitter for like at least an hour every Sunday night, don't you think?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, but if you're on Twitter, you've got to expect spoilers. Like, somebody spoiled something the other day for me with Orange is the New Black, and I was okay with it. Like, you get used to it when you're on the internet constantly. You have to.
Sure.
You have to accept that.
Right, and especially a show like Game of Thrones. I mean, if you don't want to know what's happening, stay off the internet from 9 to 10 Sunday nights, right?
Pretty much.
So let me throw that question to you, and then we'll kind of get into talking about season 4. If you had to live in one of the locations, which would it be?
I would say the North. I like Winterfell. I love the Starks, even though tears. Still getting over that. I mean, that's kind of where the focal point of the show sort of first started, at least from the series perspective, because I didn't read the books.
Okay.
So it kind of all started in Winterfell for me. So I'm still interested in that area of the Westeros, and the Starks still have a very special place in my heart.
Yeah, as even though there are not many of them left, but.
Right. Yeah. Sadly.
Well, no, I would probably go with Winterfell too, because I say this all the time, that I actually prefer winter to summer. Because it doesn't matter how many clothes you take off in the summertime, you're still going to be hot. But at least in the winter, like, you can bundle up and still be comfortable. So, but this is I'm from Virginia. We don't deal with cold weather down there very well anyway. So I mean, you know what's up. You get like a centimeter of snow and the whole region freaks out. So
yeah, school shut down, roads closed.
It's crazy. It's like mass hysteria. Dogs and cats living together. Anyway, shout out Ghostbusters. So, Jamie mentioned that you don't read the books. I wanted to put it out there before we continue. I know that we were supposed to have Anna John on tonight, who is our the third Musketeer in our Game of Thrones recapping triumvirate, but she couldn't join us tonight. And I know Anna is a big fan of the Song of Ice and Fire books. Alice, I know you are a reader, right?
I am a reader, and I'm on the 4th book, so I'm trying to a little ahead of the series, but not too much. So I haven't read everything, but I'm on the 4th.
So, but you are at least further ahead of where the television show is. So
Yeah,
you know what's going to happen. And Julie, you're like Jamie and I. You are illiterate.
Yes, right? I kind of feel like that way. I don't need no letters.
So you have no experience with. We don't read. You know what I do is I watch the show with the captions on, and then I pretend I'm reading the books. So you're not a reader either. So because I know that when we have our like internal editorial meetings about the recaps that we're writing, and Julie's always like putting her fingers in her ears, like la 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 la, don't tell me what's happening. So.
But lately, I have been begging for spoilers just so I can get some like emotional armor on. Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's an interesting. That's the interesting thing about Game of Thrones. I feel like is that we live, and Mark Bernardin wrote a thing I think in the Hollywood Reporter a while ago. Is like we live in such a spoiler cult. Like Jamie and I just mentioned it about Twitter. Like we're in such a spoiler heavy culture.
Yeah. That
how is it possible that people can still be surprised by Game of Thrones, right? So before we go further, we're going to spoil everything from the last 4 seasons up until last week's episode. So if you don't want to know anything about Game of Thrones, stop watching. That said, how can we still be so surprised over, the purple wedding, the red wedding, the Mountain and the Viper? Why are those things so shocking to people when these events have been out there in the zeitgeist for many, many years? Alice, since you're a reader, how would you? How do you not spoil it for everybody?
Well, I try really hard, and I think sometimes I am a little jealous of people who are following the series as they emerge, and I think it's almost a pure experience of enjoying the show, where as the readers, we get so smug and we're like constantly, like, oh, what's it like this? Or I didn't agree with this choice of the showrunners. What are the hell, what are they doing? And, making all these little nitpicks, which can really take away from appreciating it as a standalone parallel to the canon, which are the series and the novels. So I'm a little jealous, but I think the books really are just kind of a guide stone, a little guide, and it's surprising because when you see it visually with the music and the way the actors are interpreting the characters, and when the characters don't look the way the readers imagine, it can be very surprising. I think that's what's really rewarding when you think you know what you're going to see. You think you know this character like Jon Snow inside and out, and you can be surprised. And you really, and I think the visuals and the cinematic quality of the show, which you just gotta give them props for their high production values. I mean, a lot of
that last week's episode, I mean, people have been comparing it to, Two Towers. I made the comparison to the Two Towers on Twitter, but if you think about it, they did that on a television budget for 1 hour, 45-minute television show.
Yeah.
What a 3-hour Peter Jackson, an overindulgent movie did. So, no, it is a fantastic show. And Jamie, as someone who hasn't read the books, do you think, or who doesn't read?
Who doesn't read?
Who doesn't read? Well, do you feel like sometimes you wish that you did read the book, that you could like Alice said, be smug, and because I feel like that's part of it too. I think the people who have read the books get a kind of enjoyment out of like there was that video last year after the Red Wedding of people recording other people being surprised, right? It's like they're giggling to themselves. Do you think that you wish you could be that smug?
Okay, well, for the record, full disclosure, I do read. I am literate, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have just said I don't read books.
But no, I'm just really good at procrastination, and for the last 2 years, I've been putting it on my to-do list of many other things that I need to do with my life, and Game of Thrones is something that I've been wanting to read for a long time. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. But yeah, I do. I wish I was like everybody else that read the books, but at the same time, it's kind of fun to see the people get really angry on Twitter that's read the books, and they're like, hold on, what is HBO doing? And this is not according to the books, and people are going crazy. So it's cool to see their reactions. But then sometimes when people kind of get a little bit snobby with it and go, well, that's really not what's going to happen later on, or I'm just like, okay, well, don't tell me anything else. I haven't read the books, and I have to constantly put that out there in social media that I haven't read the books, because everybody assumes that I have. Joffrey's death, that was a spoiler for me before it happened, because somebody assumed that I read it. But I mean, it's cool. Like I said before about Twitter and social media, you have to be able to take spoilers and not take it personal and not get upset about it, because that is the culture of the internet. So it's inevitable when you're online, and you don't even have to be on Twitter. You just be on the internet and browsing the web, going on Google, and you'll see spoilers. So it's fun, but yeah, it's still on my to-do list. I do plan to read it.
Well, at least you're planning to read. I have no desire to read the books, so I'll just put that out there. Sorry, you book readers. So, Julie, do you watch The Walking Dead? Are you a Walking Dead fan?
Oh no, I watched the first episode, and I it's too much for me.
Yeah, no,
I
I
can do a little horror.
Well, the reason I was asking is that because Jamie brought up the point about how the book is the show is. I maybe I should ask this out. The book is fairly faithful. I mean, the show is fairly faithful to the book. It doesn't stray as much as The Walking Dead strays, right? So The Walking Dead, for those of you who watch The Walking Dead comic books and the TV series are literally parallel universes. There are things that have happened in the books that didn't happen that way in the show, and vice versa.
Right.
do you think that's a strength or a weakness of Game of Thrones? And I'm asking Julie this, that they do hew so closely, although there are some, subtle changes and some overlapping and consolidation of characters and, timelines. For the most part, people know what's going to happen, right? Like, people knew the Red Wedding was going to happen. People knew Oberyn was going to get squished, all that kind of stuff. People knew. So do you think, is that a weakness or a strength of Game of Thrones? Julie?
Growing up, being like starting from, I don't know, Jurassic Park, where people were really upset with the liberties the movie took versus the book, and there was constantly a debate where it was pretty much understood that the book is always better, but the movie is more visually stunning, let's say. But I think the closer you try to stay to the original canon, that's like the better direction to err on. I would think that because just from the sheer amount of material in the books, like they'd have to take out a bunch of things or brush over entire, maybe there's these huge storylines that I don't even know about because the writers of the TV show just took them out completely for sake of time. But I think the times when they do diverge, then like it's like a very purposeful little Easter egg for a little reward for people who have read, right? Mm-hmm. The scene where there's this crazy-looking prince ice guy like touching the baby, like apparently that was never mentioned in the books, and people were talking.
Everyone freaked out about that, right?
Yeah, and I think that'd be really cool. Like, but for me, I just kind of took it piece or whole meal, right? Like, oh, that's just yet another scene. But
of course, there are giant ice kings out in the beyond the wall, right? That freeze babies. Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought up the fact that even though the show hews fairly closely to the books, it does occasionally stray and shock the readers as much as it shocks the viewers. And one of the moments from this particular season of Game of Thrones that I think did that and kind of encapsulated this weird time we're in right now was the Jaime Cersei scene inside the what is it, the Sept? Where Joffrey was decomposing. And for those of you who don't watch Game of Thrones, you probably have tuned out, so I don't know why I'm addressing you. But if you don't watch Game of Thrones, the scene between Cersei and Jaime is the scene where they have sex finally after Jaime has been, pent up for all this time. He's been back in King's Landing, but it didn't seem consensual. It seemed it pretty much was rape, and there was this whole blow up on the internet about that because in the book apparently it's consensual, or I don't know how consensual and incestual.
I mean, it's as consensual as incest can be,
Right, exactly. But Alice, as someone who's read the books, and then it kind of, there's been so much talk about rape culture in the media and just in this like zeitgeist right now, and that Game of Thrones scene kind of was a part of that. What was your reaction? Because I think that was the episode you recapped, and I don't know.
Yeah, and I really took it out in my recap. I did not, go deeply into that, even though I was disturbed because, number one, I think the responses by the showrunners and the directors, I recall, in various interviews, they never really acknowledged what it was, which is it was rape. Number two, it really didn't make sense for Jaime, It just seemed like that really came out of nowhere in the sense that he'd done so much with Brienne, and I feel like he's been on this journey to really find himself and really become his own person, not this other half of Cersei. And it's really kind of a positive and it's, great development for him. And then all of a sudden, because he lost his hand, suddenly he's this bitter, disabled guy who gets so horny that he has to do his sister, over his dead son. I mean, it just seemed really left of field, and, I am disturbed by it, and I think it definitely was rape. But at the same time, I'm like, well, let me give, the showrunners just a tiny bit of leeway and see if this is something that is going to lead to something else in terms of Jaime's development and his characterization. But, right now it's like...
Doesn't seem that it has, though, right? Because that's the other thing.
And that's what's, you give a little bit of faith in that they're doing this with the intention. But right now, Jaime seems to be kind of not really... He's kind of all over the place in terms of where he's going.
Right, and let me ask you, Jaime, not because you shared names with Jaime Lannister, but just because I wanted to throw it back to you, Jaime. That Alice made a great point. Is that like the whole third season, right? We're on the fourth season now. It gets so confusing. The whole third season of Game of Thrones is all about Jaime's kind of redemption, right? Like he was a jerk asshole who gets captured by the Starks, but the being on the road with Brienne has made him a very popular character. And then, in fact, the nerdcore rapper Adam Warrock has a song called Kingslayer that he performs at all his shows. And after that episode where, Jaime rapes his sister, he even says like, I can't do this song anymore because like this is such a celebratory song about Jaime Lannister, and now no one likes Jaime Lannister. But they're still trying to. I think they're still trying to do that redemptive arc, right? Like all these scenes between Jaime and Tyrion are meant to make you sympathetic of Jaime, but it's like, is it hard to reconcile his character now for you?
It is. I mean, had they not had the rape scene, then we would have been able to see that arc grow into full redemption of his character, because now we notice that with him and Tyrion and their relationship. And I went back and forth with someone on Twitter about this very issue. Mm-hmm. I had a problem with the scene as well. I mean, rape is very traumatic. It's very uncomfortable to watch it on cinema, even in a fictional setting. Sure. And in this particular case, it didn't really warrant anything. Like, I could see if it served the story in some aspect, but it didn't. It was just gratuitous and random. And because of that, a lot of people had a problem. So, now this person that I was arguing back and forth on Twitter about this, they were like, well, there's a lot of violence on the show. We don't argue about that. But the violence on the show actually serves a purpose. I mean, it's very graphic, it's very raw, but there are wars, there is revenge, there's debts to be paid. So every murderer, every person that is slayed for a particular reason. And this random, traumatic rape that happens between Cersei and Jaime, it didn't serve any purpose. And I think that's the biggest problem that I personally had with the scene. And now it has sort of broken Jaime to where we don't really fully forgive him, because we're still thinking about that moment with him and Cersei in the sept. So it's made it very difficult for that redeeming arc to even happen.
Right, and I think it does take away from who was one of the stronger characters, and they by already like breaking up Jaime and Brienne, there was a little kind of like a, that was such a, it's like if Arya and the Hound, you don't have those things anymore. Like you look forward to those all the time, right. But losing that Brienne Jaime chemistry, and then replacing like that, it's like you wasted that whole redemptive arc for him. And I guess you could argue like, well, that's the point, right? Like no one in Westeros is worth, rooting for, right? Like when I live tweeted last week's show, I was like, I can't tell the good guys from the bad, and someone kept like tweeting at me like, there are no good guys in Game of Thrones. I'm like, well, yeah, if we're going to be existential about it, but maybe that is the point too. Like as much as we try to root for people, ultimately they're all bad people, except for Jon Snow, right? Everyone loves Jon Snow.
Yes.
Well,
I heart him.
I am not in the Jon Snow fan club. I find him quite irritating. I make jabs at him all the time in my recaps. Like, just, Jon Snow's sad again.
My personal work being completely, like, superficial crushing, I would say that my boo on Game of Thrones is my favorite bastard, Gendry Waters, the son of Robert Baratheon.
Oh yeah, whatever happened to him? He's forgotten.
Oh yeah.
I want to see him again. He knew how to handle hot metal.
Like the Onion Knights, the Onion Knights sent him away, and we haven't seen him since, right?
I don't know, and he also got kind of raped by Melisandre.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well, let's continue. I know that on Facebook, one of our friends, John Hanley, who runs Sonic Boombox, did a very unscientific Facebook poll of his friends on Facebook to see who the hottest guy on Game of Thrones was, and so I'm assuming. So Alice has already put a vote for Gendry. I'm assuming for Jamie it's Jon Snow, but what do I know?
Yeah, Jon Snow, definitely. And I had a moment where Jon Snow kind of went down on the hot guy level, and Prince Oberyn was up there.
Yeah.
But he has no face anymore, so.
Yeah, he doesn't have a face, so. But yeah, Jon Snow is my boo.
How about you, Julie? Who's your guy on Jon Snow?
I am Tyrion Lannister fangirl all the way.
Yes, him too. Yeah. He's number 2 under Jon Snow.
He's kind of like the default. Like, we automatically, he's everybody's boo. And then we have these good guys. Like, he's kind of like the standard, I think.
Tyrion's well, it's funny. I mean, like, Dinklage he became the de facto star of the show, especially after Sean Bean did the Sean Bean. And when he does what he tends to do in every movie. So yeah, I mean, everyone loves Tyrion, and I think that's kind of what's driven this season too. The whole what's going to happen to Tyrion, and you know, Alice, I know you've read the book, so you don't have to chime in on this, but if they, you know, the showrunners have proven that they're not scared to like off their most popular characters. And if Tyrion, but that's the question, right? If Tyrion does meet his fate Sunday night, or you know, sometime next season, what happens then? Like, he is the heart of the show. He's the what happens in Game of Thrones if Tyrion is gone? That's for anyone. That's the rhetorical question too, I guess. But that's for any of you. What would you do if you lost?
I would say there's still Arya, who is a heart in a lot of ways. I think she and Sansa and Bran, I think this season we really have seen kind of little bits of them and seen where they're going, but they could receive more of a spotlight season 5 if we really want to have a new heart, a new center, and move away from King's Landing.
Well, that kind of goes back to Jamie's original point about how Winterfell. I mean, the show started in Winterfell, and I'm assuming the books kind of start in Winterfell too. Mm-hmm. That you know, the Starks really are the center of, you know, they're at least the moral core of Game of Thrones. Like Jon Snow up on the wall, and you know, Robb Stark last year before the Red Wedding. I mean, even though they probably have done bad things, they are still the most noble of all of the houses in Westeros, right? I mean, that's what we're supposed to assume, at least, right?
Yeah, and I think, you know, fortunes rise, fortunes fall, and it doesn't. Things are converging north of the wall.
But at the same time, though, like that's the thing about George R.R. Martin and even Benioff and Weiss to a certain extent, is that part of the appeal of the show, and also like I think what drives people crazy about the show and the book is how Martin kind of twists what we expect, right? So and I think it was Andy Greenwald on Grantland who made this point. Like, all these years, you know, Jon Snow is probably going to be the hero of the whole story. I mean, either him or Bran. That's kind of like what they seems to be setting up. And for all these years, you kind of wanted Jon Snow to have that, you know, basically the speech that Bolton gives to his bastard. What's his name? Ramsay, right. Like the whole, you know, you're not a bastard anymore, you're a Bolton. Like, that's the speech you wanted Ned to give to Jon Snow, right? And but Martin, being the sadistic bastard that he is like, no, we're gonna make this like total unlikable, you know, evil, sadistic asshole get all of the praise that Jon Snow deserves, and that's how I'm going to do it because I like torturing my readers, right? I mean, isn't that kind of the appeal of Game of Thrones too? Is that the bad guys seem to always, like, Tywin has not have anything gone like against him the entire time, and no one. I mean, you almost kind of respect Tywin in a way that he's such a cold bastard, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's really if he really is about protecting the Lannister legacy, he's done a pretty good job. He's just ruthless and divorcing his emotions from his goals. And
Like, wouldn't that be some shit if Tywin ended up being like the hero of the show? Like the last book is like Tywin wins. Like,
Wow.
So
that
let's
was
let's kind of focus on this upcoming finale and what we think is going to happen. But before we do, is there a moment in the season for you that stood out as your favorite moment? Julie, what was the thing that stood out to you the most? Like the best moment for the entire this particular season?
This is gonna sound really bad, but the kind of the happiest moment for me, and I still have to kind of maybe go through therapy to figure out why, was when Arya stabbed that guy in the heart.
yeah,
So
yeah.
proud of her. Like, I literally, like, my tears welled up. Like, that's my girl. Like, her first kill, and he moving too. Like, it was so messed up.
you can imagine the ghost of Syrio looking down and praising her. You are now, it's just like you feel that she's learned everything that Syrio taught her, and she's arrived.
and whatever happens to her, I mean, even though the world has already happened to her, like, she's gonna be okay, and I think maybe that's where, like, these really, like, motherly feelings are coming from, even though, like, it basically shows that her soul has completely, like, her childhood is already gone, her soul is black, she is, like, feeling nothing over this man, but, like, it was triumph still.
Well, I think that goes back to my point about George R. R. Martin and how he like what's typical of like the fantasy genre, and he kind of like does the inverted version of that, right? And seeing the really innocent like 9-year-old become a ruthless killer, and that being a triumphant moment is pretty bizarro, right?
It's horrible. But
How about you, Jamie? What was your highlight? What goes at the top of your highlight reel for season 4?
Oh gosh, I think everybody can agree with this one. Joffrey's death. Oh my gosh, I've been wanting that kid to die since season 1. Like, kill this kid now. And when it happened, there was little tears that formed in my eyes, tears of joy. And I was just rocking back and forth in giddy excitement. And I did rewind it at least 6 times when it happened. I kid you not. And then people had their internet memes of Joffrey's death and the GIFs where they just played it over and over, and I watched, and I just enjoyed it all the more. So that was definitely the highlight.
Yeah, I wonder if the sales of pigeon pie went down after that, though. I don't think there was many. No, yeah, it's kind of hard to top. I mean, and that's the other kind of amazing thing. Like, that's something that you would assume, like, he's such a hateful character that, and the showrunners are so sadistic that you would think he was just going to last forever, and to off him in the second episode was pretty mind blowing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Alice, what is the best?
Yeah, I think the moment when Joffrey died was pretty epic, especially the way they built up to it, the way Joffrey was humiliating Tyrion. I mean, that whole, oh my God, just kept building and building, and to see his purpley, giggly face, it was delicious. I could have eaten that up. But I think that's one of my favorites. But I think the other highlight really was the trial of Tyrion. And, again, it was this kind of build-up, right? And this is what's, I think, different from the books. And the show can really, due to the pacing, the editing, it just really builds up this suspense, and it really holds you. And, going through this farce of a trial, and basically Tyrion at the very end just lets loose his rage and tells the truth, and just, brings it down, like he lays it out there. He doesn't give a rat's ass what anybody thinks.
Right.
And it's really directed at his dad. So again, the show is so much about parental issues. You know, these children and their issues with their parents. Man, this is a big one. I mean,
Yeah.
That was a good
Tyrion's
one.
rage toward his dad and the injustice of, you know, having to justify his existence, you know. I think that was a really high point for
And that's
Tyrion.
the other thing about, I think, what you said, Alice, about the quality of the showrunners and the filmmakers behind Game of Thrones, is that they were able to make a pretty like standard courtroom procedure, Law and Order type episode really, really compelling, and like that was very dramatic. And when Shay comes in and you can see like Peter Dinklage just deflate, like he was basically
Oh,
auditioning
yeah.
for his Emmy for that in that
Yeah.
episode. And it's not just the speech, it's just like the look, the defeat in his eye when Shay, you know, started lying about him and things like that. It was really
There hasn't been a trial that good since the OJ trial. Man, that trial was epic.
I was waiting for
Yeah.
the Bronco to take Tyrion away, right? It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was epic. I loved it. Tyrion, like, Peter Dinklage, he's awesome. And you're right, that is definitely his Emmy moment. I really hope he gets a nomination because I don't even think he's been nominated yet in his
Yeah.
role in Game of Thrones. So that was definitely one of the most dramatic and a huge, huge high point for season 4.
And I
Definitely.
think for any season to be nominated in, I think Peter Dinklage with this season and that, you know, particular episode is absolutely appropriate. So I hope he gets it.
So it's interesting that you know, we've gone almost like 40 minutes talking about Game of Thrones, and no one has mentioned Dany. And I find that interesting because Dany's story, the Daenerys Targaryen, is the other kind of like, it's the other shoe to drop in Game of Thrones. Like whenever the books finish or whenever the show finishes, it has to be leading up to like Dany and her dragons and her unsullied crossing the Narrow Sea and taking back King's Landing. But what have we just forgotten about her? Is her storyline not as compelling than what's going on the West Side?
And so I feel like she's been in a holding pattern. So, you know, with so many characters, I think this is just, you know, some people just have to take prominence more than others. So I think her storyline and particularly Bran, I really, you know, I want to know more about what's coming in Bran. I miss Hodor so much. What about Rickon? What about the other two brothers? Where are they? What are they doing? So, you know, I'm assuming that hopefully their stories are going to be more focused next season.
Well, Julie, I mean, I know Dany was one of your favorite characters going into this season, at least, or at least for the fact that you claim her as an Asian American character, because there are so many on Game of Thrones.
Right.
And that's actually something that, again, that one dude on the Nerds of Color comment page was like, why are you writing about Game of Thrones? Like, I thought this was the Nerds of Color. There ain't no colored people on Game of Thrones. Why are you writing about it? So, I mean, point taken, I suppose. But yeah, what is it with Dany's story? Like, why has she kind of like fallen off the map for you? Is she still one of your favorite characters?
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. I'm still Team Dany. I still want her to win the whole thing. But you know, maybe it's because just the last couple episodes were really jam-packed with stuff and really, you know, kind of vivid, and didn't really include her. And then maybe it's also kind of purposeful, like it's kind of a planting maybe for like a huge payoff. Because she decided, you know, she's going to hold off on sailing west for now, and she's going to learn how to rule. And, you know, they've kind of made it obvious that it's very repetitive and boring, right, like for her. And therefore, you know, kind of diminishes her a little. What I really love about the Daenerys storyline right now is that budding little romance between Grey Worm and was it Mason?
Yes.
Mason?
Missandei?
Missandei? Yeah, Missandei. Yeah, Missandei. But sorry. But that was adorable. Like their scenes together that was like a nice little Like, thank you for a little bit of like hope and tenderness in like the midst of all this darkness. It was adorable. But yeah, I mean, I think she is. I mean, number one, Daenerys is like super young still. Like, I think she's still too green to really have a fighting chance of you know, sitting on the Iron Throne. But so far, like, I think she has really good instincts and.
So you're still Team Dan. You're still rooting for her to.
I'm still rooting for her, even though I'm a little bit puzzled at, like, you know, poor Jorah, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got friend zoned.
We got friend zoned a long time ago. Now he just got cast out. He's not even friend zoned anymore.
True.
And maybe I think the other thing is too is that like that being an Essos is just so far removed from everything that's going on in the rest of the world. Like even though like King's Landing and the wall and like there's you can see how it's all connected, but right now Dany's story is so separate from everything. I mean she's just ruling you know the Slaver's Bay basically, and is completely disconnected from everything that's happening on Westeros, and maybe that's the other disconnect.
You know, that reminds me, like, there is one thing that kind of leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth about the whole thing is because, like, you know, she's, like, freeing the slaves and, like, freeing these, like, mass hordes of
Brown folk.
Yeah, brown to beige people, calling her mother. Like, they were really, really, like, just, like, cashing in that chip over and over and over again. And I just thought it was a little tone deaf, I think, to, like, you know, there's no irony in it, like, at least from what I can tell. Like, she's really supposed to be this, like, literal white savior.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh.
Yeah.
Can you be a little bit more clever about it?
Crowd surfing on top of all the brown people.
That image was cringeworthy at best. Yeah, I mean, nothing screams white savior more than that image of her in the crowd of brown people being held up.
And that was the last image of season 3. I mean, that's how it ended. It was like that was the big triumphant moment.
And there was a lot of pushback, I think, from people of color, you know, blogging about it, and they were like really, you know, like already there's really so few diverse like main characters. Always the ancillary characters, you know, get people of color like the smuggler or that guy, Doro, the guy who was trapped in the temple. I mean, so they're always
the
kind of
contortionist at the wedding.
Yeah, so you know, that just seems so. I am worried about Dany without Jorah. And a very small group of people that she trusts. I do worry, you know, how will she be able to trust people and really lead, you know, and make good decisions.
Well, so we mentioned the finale last season of Dany crowd surfing. We are on the cusp of another finale, and I'll recuse Alice because you probably know what's going to happen Sunday night. But Jamie and Julie, what are your speculations, you know, based on everything that we watched and witnessed last episode? And I think you all probably saw the preview following. What are you looking forward to in the finale, and what are you dreading in the finale? We'll start with Jamie.
I'm dreading Tyrion's death. I really hope that does not happen. I will be rocking in a corner and taking a cold shower after that happens, if that happens. But I do hope that they wrap up his story. I feel like if they just leave us hanging, I'll be really pining for what's going to be happening in season 5. So I hope they somehow give us some sort of loose ends to tie up for Tyrion in season 4, at the end of season 4. So yeah, I'm praying. I'll be praying on Sunday night.
to the old god, then the new.
I mean, there's probably going to be a lot of surprises, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what's going to be happening next for Jon Snow. I mean, like, now he's a boss, basically. I hope we get to see something that's going on with Dany's storyline, because I do feel like, you know, what you mentioned, I feel like it's kind of lingering. I hope there's some closure between her and Jorah. that maybe there's some forgiveness, that maybe that he's able to do something to bring her back in her good graces. So I'm hoping that it's very good, happy endings for everybody on Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I think you just doomed us all, Jamie. Julie, same question. What are your what are you looking forward to, and what are you worried about?
Well, number one, I'm going to say, like, without knowing anything, I haven't even actually seen the preview. I refuse to believe that Tyrion will die. He will not die. He will find a way to get out of this at least one more time. And what I'm really, really hoping for is for, like, 2 or more of the Stark children to be in, like, the same frame. Like, Arya and Sansa are so close, right? They're so close to reuniting. Like, I hope we see that. Or do you remember when, like, Jon Snow and Bran were, like, almost ready to reunite? And, like, I felt, like, I don't know. Like, me and, like, the ghost of Ned Stark are going to be like, just get the children back together. God damn it.
But once that happens, something horrible will follow, right? Like, as soon as they come in the same vicinity, then they're all going to die, and I don't think you want that.
Oh, I don't know. I'm actually really curious about the whole, like, Peter Baelish, like, Sansa Stark thing. Like, that is really intriguing to me. It's, it's icky to think about. But, I don't know. All of a sudden, Sansa became interesting to me.
Yeah. She's really one of those that's really surprising, right?
Right.
She's so typecast as being so meek and naive and a foolish, girl. But my God, when she came down those stairs in that really just badass, like, dress, it was like, it made me think about ravens, like raven feathers. I mean, it was really, and she gave, Littlefinger a little, like,
yeah, I'm bad.
Sexy eyes. I mean, she was using it. I mean, she was working it, and wow, she's going to be somebody to really look out for in the future.
So, Alice, can you give us a hint what you are assuming will happen, since you have read? I'm assuming past what the finale is going to show, without spoiling it.
It should be at King's Landing. Some more action happening after that trial, after the battle. So I'm expecting some more deaths.
Kill
There can't be
Rachel.
any more deaths.
I want Theon to die.
Yeah, I'm ready for that.
Poor guy. Yeah, put him out of his misery.
Yeah, please.
We're talking about, like, wasted minutes that could have been spent on other characters, right? I feel like that was like, why are we back with Ramsay again? This is, yeah.
Well, yeah, and at least that's the other, I think, good thing about the show versus the books is, from what I know about the books, whole chapters are told from a singular point of view. So, like, you can go years without knowing what happens to other characters because, like, one, Martin takes so damn long to write the books. So, like, years go by without even, like, knowing. Because I read somewhere that, like, in actual publication time, it's like 10 years between chapters of, like, Arya and the Hound. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
That it's just so like, one, he takes so long to write, and two, like, the books are so big that you're telling one person's point of view rather than, like, cutting back and forth like they do on the show. So that's why the show is actually moving so much faster than the books too. I think they're going to actually lap the books, and there's a strong possibility that the show will end before the books do, and then it'll be like a weird reversal when that happens, that, like, the people watching the show can have will know. But it's less satisfying, I guess, if I watch if I know what's going to happen, and then, like, sitting next to someone reading the book and waiting for them to get to the scene, it doesn't work as well as it does the other way. But now anyway,
then now the TV viewers should be the smug ones. And
right, exactly.
Right.
Well, I'm sure the three of you could talk about Game of Thrones for another several hours, but I think we're gonna put a pin in it right there and wait for Sunday night. You can catch. All of us will be live tweeting it on Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. 6 p.m. Westeros time, I guess.
Time.
Follow along, hashtag DemThrones, DemThrones. That's what Black Girl Nerds uses. And Got Knock, GOTNOC. That's what we use, and we usually hashtag each other's stuff. I want to thank my guests tonight, Julie Kang, the Mother of Dragons. Thank you for being a part. You can find her on Twitter at Julie Kang. Alice Wong, thank you for being on the show. Follow her on Twitter at SFDirewolf. And finally, Jamie Broadnax, you can find her on Twitter and the internet at Black Girl Nerds. I'm Keith at The Real Chow. Follow us at The Nerds of Color. And thank you all for joining us, and I'll see you next time.
They call me Kingslayer because I killed the king. Kingslayer because my sword it brings kingdoms to their knees, families to the streets. House of Lannister, and yes, that's me. They call me Kingslayer because I killed the king. Kingslayer because my sword it brings kingdoms to their knees, families to the streets. No men like me, only me. They call him Kingslayer because he killed Aerys Targaryen with Robert Baratheon, crashed the gates of Red Keep. And though he swore by an oath to protect him with his life,